Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. Your host, Tyler Smith here. What I do on this channel is I teach different occult or esoteric subjects. I cover Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, the Tree of Life, the Tree of Death, otherwise known as the Qliphothic tree, just a multitude of different subjects. Research, ways on how you can apply these principles to some degree in your daily life. While I am a practitioner myself, I am mostly a researcher and a relayer of information. But I am always working on my practices, especially as of late, really not focusing so much on particular ritual work, but more just integrating emotion, sitting in a calm, quiet space, and allowing the body to heal itself. Allow the body to, basically work through and actually feel the emotion, feel, where I am in the present moment. And then just try to consciously focus on any parts of my body that may be tense, because that is a common thing for me. I'm about to be 32 in November, so I'm still a young cat, but I used to live a really active lifestyle. There were times in my life where I pushed my body tremendously far, was trying to do a little too much at once and kind of burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. So it's always good to keep up with physical exercise. That's kind of what I did today. I'm just doing some work around the house, mowing, getting outside, getting sunshine. Real sunlight is a great advantage to you. Those who are stuck in, I would say, environments that have a lot of, especially fluorescent lighting. A lot of these, the stores actually have fluorescent lighting, or just any kind of artificial lighting. It's not as beneficial for our psyche and things of those nature, so it's good to get outside. It's good to get fresh air, and it's good to get real sunlight and just soak up the healing energies. So instead of always trying to advance our practices, instead of always trying to just get more and more knowledge, lately I've been more about integration and just sitting with the emotions of things and seeing what it's really trying to tell me. And even though life can demand a lot of us, we need to set aside a time just to really reflect, integrate, heal, try to find the parts of our body where the tension is and work on relieving that tension, getting to the root of what's causing the tension. And then we can learn to move about more freely throughout our day and not hold as much pressure, not hold as much tension in those areas. As Universal Mastery, he just put a couple new videos out, and one of them is on spiritual bypassing, and I think that's a really good video. I think that's the newest one. I recommend going and checking that one out. But he talks about a lot about how we hold traumas and we hold pain within the nervous system. So it's really going within like the nervous system and figuring out where those parts, where we're holding stress in the body, and try to work on relieving the tension, find out what is the causal factors of that, rather than trying to use like medications or other things to temporarily relieve those ailments. Actually just sitting with yourself and teaching your body how to cope with it energetically, and kind of leaning into it rather than trying to see it as something to be banished away. The universe is going to bring certain forces, and if we can work through them rather than trying to work around them or push them away, this can be of great benefit. So that was just kind of a side little preamble beginning of this video. I'm going to try to speak a little bit louder in this video too. I know that I was outside in the last one and it was probably a little bit hard to hear maybe some of what I was saying. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and cover up the rest of the Tree of Life and the Qliphothic tree as well. And I was simply going through in Damien Eccles' Angels and Archangels and the Tree of the Qliphoth. These two books summarize each Sephiroth of each tree, while the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life and the Qliphoth, or the shells on the Tree of Death. Just going over each of these spheres. I'm not going to cover the 22 paths on each tree. That's a little bit more advanced, I guess, study. And while I do know a little bit about the paths, I know about the archetype of the tarot cards for each path. The tunnels of Set I'm really not familiar with. I'm a lot more familiar with the paths on the Tree of Life, but even on those paths, I still have a lot of research to do and a lot of study. I've never really done path working per se on the tree, even though we've all experienced different spheres on the Tree of Life or the Tree of Death, depending on where we're at in our lives, you know, and the experiences that we go through. Even if we're not consciously traveling through the tree, there have been times in our lives where we've been in different aspects of the tree, or different spheres of each tree could have been an emphasis, an archetypal emphasis, or part of ourselves that we were working through at that current time. So I went ahead and covered Tiphareth and Thagirion on the last video, so I'm going to go ahead and start from the sphere of Geburah, severity. As we continue to ascend the tree, we move from Tiphareth to the sphere of Geburah. Geburah is the sphere of strength and severity. Its energy is a deep, rich red. Working with this energy brings courage, self-discipline, protection, willpower, and the strength to cut away that which does not serve our growth and development. If this energy is not in balance, it leads to cruelty, lack of compassion, and anger. The Archangel of this sphere is Kamael. His name translates roughly as Strength of God, and he is the fiercest warrior among the celestial hosts. Kamael exists to protect those who may not be able to protect themselves, and when called upon, he will defend you against anything or anyone who attempts to inject strife into your life. Kamael, or Kamael, I'm not sure which pronunciation is technically more accurate, whatever resonates with you, or maybe Kamael. Kamael works swiftly and without remorse to keep us safe and shielded, but he can only do so with our invitation. In a lot of aspects, he reminds me of the elemental Archangel Michael of fire. They have a lot of similar correspondence. In certain magical circles, it's rumored that Kamael wasn't the first archangel to rule the domain of Geburah. Some say the original power of the sphere was the angel Samael, but that he fell, and this fall, or this awakening, led to Kamael's rise. What exactly is a fallen angel? Think of it like this. Angels have neither free will nor self-awareness. So that's interesting that he gives that viewpoint. So even archangels as not having self-awareness. They're kind of like computer programs designed to carry out specific functions around the universe. Some speculate that the story of fallen angels is about a misstep in the evolutionary process. Quote, misstep. I wouldn't even like to use that phrasing. A misstep in the, maybe just a more conscious step in the evolutionary process that led to a small group of these angelic intelligences becoming self-aware, somewhat like Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis. And this self-awareness led to a false sense of separation from divinity, but remember, separation for the sake of unity. And that's one of the aspects of being a physical being. So as we know, we've talked about many times on this channel, Geburah being one of the main components that led to the creation of the Qliphoth in the first place. This sphere gaining too much imbalance on that side of the tree of life. And we know Samael, we talked about him in the last video. He's one of the main initiators alongside Lilith on the tree of the Qliphoth. So he has connections with the sphere Geburah originally. So moving on, we're going to go to Qliphoth, the burning one, which is the antipole to Geburah. Qliphoth is the lake of fire and the pit of destruction, the fiercest and the most violent force of the Qliphoth. The lake of fire. So maybe when they are referring to, being thrown into a lake of fire in the Bible, really it's talking about this sphere, Qliphoth. On the path of the dragon, this is the crowning of the path of the warrior that is initiated in the realm of Arab Zarok by Baal and the dark Venus. Because remember, Venus is associated with Netzach, and Arab Zarok is the antipole to Netzach. The initiate becomes here the force of destruction and the bringer of the apocalypse, the living manifestation of the burning one. The demonic ruler of the Qliphoth is the fiery lord of lust and wrath, Asmodeus, also referred to as Samael the Black. Interesting. The one adorned with fire, or the one who rules in strength. That same theme being used, as in Geburah, strength. The initiatory process of Qliphoth is violent and harsh. It is the way of pleasure and suffering, passion and fury, rapture and war. All right. Moving to the sphere of Hesed, mercy. Hesed is where we find the energies of abundance and prosperity, joy and adventure. It's reminiscent of the planetary energy of Jupiter, which falls under its domain. When we truly tap into this sphere, we learn how to love unconditionally and throw ourselves ferociously and fearlessly into the fray of life. When working with Zadkiel, the archangel of the sphere, burning bayberry and cedar incenses will strengthen the experience. Keep an eye out for an increase in favorable events and circumstances. Zadkiel is the angel of luck, the archangel of luck. The more you work with him, the luckier you'll become. It's said in magical circles that it was Zadkiel who kept watch over Abraham, the father of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There comes a time when everyone who walks the path of magic must decide to do so with complete devotion in order to make further progress, and it's Zadkiel who helps us choose the spiritual or magical realm over the physical world. That being said, I still think of Zadkiel as the fun archangel. That's because Hesed is the domain of abundance. It's corresponded with Jupiter, and even Christ has a lot of Jupiter energy, so that's where this unconditional love, when you can really tap into the universe and you can really see yourself, as the source and being connected to all, it allows you to tap into that kind of unconditional love energy. And yeah, he kept watch over Abraham because Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Isaac. That whole story, Zadkiel, I'm pretty sure, was the one who stopped him in his place, Abraham, from doing that. And that's kind of a weird story, I think, and overall, but there's some esoteric understandings to it. It's not so much like a literal, not so much a literal thing. Zadkiel, of course we want to get to the antipole, or the flip side, the coin, the opposite side of the coin to Hesed, which is Gog Shablah. The third realm on the solar plane is called Gog Shablah, the smiter, or I'm going to probably butcher this, Gamchikoth, or Gamkikoth, Devourers. It is the last outpost before the Abyss. So this is before you cross the Abyss in the Qliphothic journey. The seventh Qliphoth below the highest triad, Sateriel, Gagiel, and Thamael. Here the initiate becomes the smiter, and he has to destroy or devour what one has created, thus destroying the very substance of creation that lies at the foundation of the universe. This realm is ruled by Astaroth, the foul angel of the Qliphoth, sometimes identified with the goddess Ishtar. I was going to say, I saw some posts on YouTube about Astaroth, and I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's actually feminine in nature, which is interesting because, once again, we were talking about the masculine being within the feminine and the feminine being within the masculine. This is on the masculine pillar, the pillar of mercy, on the tree of life. I mean, this is the tree of death we're talking about, but same idea. It's still the antipole to that pillar. His toxic breath poisons the structures of the world and dissolves them in the final annihilation of humanity, as the initiate has to leave one's whole life behind before entering the abyss. Like Ishtar Inanna on her quest for power and divinity, standing naked at the gates of the underworld in the ancient Sumerian myth. And I'll go ahead and read Da'ath as well, the abyss. Knowledge, the worthless one on the Qliphothic tree. Da'ath is the hidden or pseudo-Sephirah, the realm that exists on both the tree of life and the tree of death, or in between them. I saw a lot of 11s popping up yesterday, so I kind of took that as a sign that there was some connection with the 11 is the portal, it's the gateway, it's the one and the one in between the two pillars. It connects the tree of life and the tree of death. Serves as the gate between the day side and the night side. Its meaning in the positive sense is knowledge, while its Qliphothic counterpart is called the Worthless One, which is also the title of the demon king Belial, the Watcher of the Gate. The other guardians in the Draconian tradition are Choronzon, the demon of dispersion, and Shugal, the Howler in the desert. They both constitute the female and the male aspects of the force known as the Beast 666. Da'at, the Abyss, is also connected with the mysteries of Babylon, who guides the initiate through the desolation of nothingness and confusion to her city of pyramids, thus making the journey forward possible. All right, so back to the Tree of Life. Now we are going to cover Baina, the Divine Feminine. And I've seen this mentioned before. A lot of people think that Hokuma should not actually be the second Sephirah on the Tree of Life. It should be Baina. That being said, because of the universe being the primordial feminine chaotic energy, which is more what Baina represents. There was a Jewish scholar, Ibn Geberal, I think it was, I read in Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, that says that Hokuma is actually born from the union of Kether and Baina. So it could actually make sense, Baina being the second Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, and then Hokuma being third. But traditionally, Hokuma is the second sphere, and Baina the third. Let's get into it. Baina is the most feminine of all the spheres, and it's here that we find all the dark goddesses, such as Hecate and Nyx. So Lilith would also fall into this as well. And that's why I often see, Zophkael, that archangel, being very archetypally similar to Lilith, but it would just be the more positive polarity version, the archangel correspondence rather than the demonic one. Baina is affiliated with the energy of Saturn, of course, which is also associated with things such as binding and banishing, time, karma, and old age. A lot of time clocks, if you work at a company like Kroger or something like that, their time clocks are even called Chronos, and Chronos is what? The god of time, so that Saturn connection. The principal work of Binah, there, that word work popping up, is the complete dissolution of the ego, and it's Binah that is most closely related to the process of crossing the abyss. It's here where the ego and its programming become transparent, and we can finally see the self or the illusion it has always been. Kamael is the Archangel of Binah. She helps us to understand the painful lessons that are a necessary component to any measure of spiritual development. This Saturnian energy, this kind of, I almost call them like solemn spiritual lessons, have been lessons that I've, a lot of spiritual people, they'll want to avoid that. They don't want to focus on the darker aspects, the more not so pleasant aspects of spirituality. But if you learn about these things, if you integrate them, if you process them, then you can really appreciate death or transformation for what it really is, and then you'll be able to enjoy more of the present moment because you understand that. Like, you're going to appreciate the positive stuff much more. You're going to be able to see so much more beauty in the world around you. She helps us to understand the painful lessons that are a necessary component to any measure of spiritual development. Working with Kamael teaches us the value of silence. Those who observe and sit back and listen rather than always being outgoing. It's the feminine energy. Remember, it's the receptive. She teaches us the value of silence because we must first learn to be silent in order to properly hear. Hers is not an energy to invoke lightly. For example, Damien invoked Kamael to bind the Attorney General who was trying to have him executed, even though the evidence showed that he was innocent. And he was eventually caught in a scandal that destroyed his career and personal life. Kamael is also the first angel I ever saw after a couple months of working with these angelic intelligences, and my first glimpse of her was like a revelation. Any doubts I had about magic before that moment vanished. The experience was actually terrifying. I've never been able to fully articulate the event because our language is mostly designed to address and describe mundane occurrences, thoughts, and feelings. Whatever it was, experiencing Kamael or Kamael in my cell on death row was certainly not mundane. So it reminds me a lot of what an encounter with Lilith could be like. Very similar, yet different sides of the same coin. Sateriel is the correspondence on the Tree of Death. And remember, Binah is understanding. Hokuma is knowledge, but Binah understands. The feminine, the receptive, it understands. It is the primordial chaos, or the primal mother, that gives birth to creation. Sateriel is the womb of the Dark Mother and the throne of the goddess of the Qliphoth, manifesting under various masks of the dark feminine, such as Lilith, the queen of Sichara, or Babylon, the mother of abominations. It is also the lair of the spider goddess, who arises from the void to take the initiate to the roots of one's destiny. The ruling force of the Qliphoth is Lucifuge, the one who flees light. He is the shadow brother of Lucifer and the lord of the dark star, which refers to the eye of Lucifer and the dark chakra Sunyata in the subtle body of man. Here in the black labyrinths of Lucifuge, the initiate faces tests of surrealism and absurdity and learns to find truth through the mysteries of the concealer. There's a lot of songs that actually refer to the Dark Star, and I've been to a music festival called the Dark Star Jubilee, and that was a really spiritual experience in and of itself. But Dark Star, if anybody knows more occult significance to what the Dark Star is, that's something that I've always wanted to know a little bit more about from somebody who's a serious spiritual, student or practitioner. So if you have any information on the Dark Star, let me know about that. Okay, Hokuma. Featuring the Archangel Raziel, which is actually my favorite angel. My son is named after Archangel Raziel. I just really like his background. I like his lore. I like what he stands for, his story. And I'm going to go ahead and read this section. Covered a lot of Raziel stuff on this channel. If Binah is the embodiment of divine feminine energy on the tree, then Hokuma is the divine masculine. It's Hokuma that is most associated with the father gods and deities. Hokuma is also the energy behind the magician card in the tarot, the energy that reaches out into the universe to put things in motion. So it's kind of that linear energy, the willpower. You know, the magician, he's pointing his finger up. The energy that reaches out into the universe to put things in motion. Sorry, I already read that. However, keep in mind that in Hokuma there is no more you, which is why it was said by Christ, I and my Father are one, John 10:30 in the King James Version of the Bible. The place where the illusion of the ego once existed becomes completely filled by the divine. And it's in Hokuma where the distinction between creator and creation dissolves. The archangel that presides over everything within the realm of Hokuma is Raziel, the prince of hidden things. Raziel is the force that causes us to have epiphanies and realizations about how magic and the universe operate. And this information often comes to us in dreams, signs, and hidden flashes of intuition or inner knowing. He is a really good angel when it comes to this, when it comes to having revelations or epiphanies. I've had some really interesting experiences with Raziel, which I've talked about a little bit on this channel. And they kind of go beyond words. You know, it's really hard to put into language. Raziel is also said to witness and record everything that takes place on Earth in an infinitely enormous book, the record of Akasha, the book of Akasha. And the book will only be closed once the last sentient being enters the realm of the divine. In other words, he's heaven's record keeper. And of course, I've always been a bookworm. I've always loved books. I've loved reading them, holding them, taking them with me, even when I'm camping or going out wherever. I always love to have a book on hand. So I kind of really, and Raziel being the gray angel, you know, he's very much, I see him as a union of the dualities. He's not the white angel, he's not Metatron, but he's also not the dark either. He's both. So when we look at characters, I want to talk a little bit more about Darth Revan in some upcoming video. I'm not sure when, but a little bit about his lore in Star Wars and how he's a gray. He's pretty much the epitome of what a gray Jedi is, because there's parts in his life, in his lore, where he's walking the dark path, and parts where he's walking the light path, you know, so to speak. He's really very fully engaged on the spectrum of the Force. He's like experienced the whole shebang, so to speak. So he's a really interesting character. Okay, so now we are at the Antipoll of Hokuma, which is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Gagiel? Gagiel is the throne of the dark god, because remember, it's masculine, and the pylon of the masculine phallic current of the Qliphoth, the force that provides energy for creation or recreation of the universe by the initiate emerging from the womb of the Dark Mother. Obviously, we can see how this corresponds in things like sex on a physical level or manifestation, these higher spiritual principles manifesting themselves into Malkuth. This realm is ruled by Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, and Adam Belial, the wicked man. The name of the Qliphoth translates as those who go forth into the place empty of God, which on the path of the dragon refers to the process of breaking the divine law before entering the throne of Lucifer and Thamael. To withstand and harness the harsh forces of this realm, the initiate has to become Adam Belial, the living vessel and manifestation of the Hinderer. Okay, and there's one more sphere on each tree to read about, and then I will go ahead and wrap up this video. So Kether Source, essentially. Kether is the top sphere on the Tree of Life. This sphere represents complete and utter union with the divine source of creation. It is beyond form or duality. It's said that the human mind is incapable of conceiving of Kether because it contains no qualities that the human intellect can grasp. no qualities that the human intellect can grasp. And this actually, we watched a really cool movie last night. It was called Alien Code. I think it's on Amazon Prime. Check that video out. You will not be disappointed if you watch that video, because, slight spoiler alert, if you don't want to be, have a spoiler or whatever, maybe skip ahead 30 seconds or so. But towards the end of the movie, he ends up talking with this other being, which obviously exists outside of his dimension, and it's really, they're curious about humanity, and he's really doesn't understand concepts such as they don't understand concepts such as separation, because they see everything as one. And that's how a lot of these higher entity beings, they see all of us. They don't see us as separate. They see us as one. And the human intellect, he kept saying you could not really understand what we are about. You could not possibly understand what our experience as the beings that we are is like. So Alien Code, I think that's what it was. Go ahead and check that video out if you're looking for a good movie to watch. Elysium was another interesting movie to check out too. I think that one was on Prime or Hulu too. I can't remember. So to achieve the state of consciousness symbolized by Kether would be to lose all sense of an individual self and completely merge with divinity. So formless, essentially. When no trace of self or ego remains, the individual becomes a window or portal through which the divine mind shines into the material realm. You become like an empty vessel, a blank slate. The color white, it represents purity, it represents, complete cleansing on which to draw, the canvas. In this context, Metatron is the Archangel of Kether and is therefore the one who directs the flow of divine energy down into the material plane. And if you do activate your crown chakra and you can really connect with Metatron, he's a very bright angel. It starts getting hard to really perceive the light at that level because it's so bright. And like Damien said, it's hard to really conceive what it's like on that level. And finally, Thamael, the twin god, the furthest antipole on the tree of death. If you're looking at it from a tree of life perspective, if this is Malkut and these are the roots going down, but really it's the fiery pillar of ascent if you're on the left-hand path. The realm of Thamael marks the crowning of the draconian initiatory process. You can see this by the Satan and Moloch is represented by the two-headed eagle that you often see. The benevolent or the positive polarity version of this would be the eagle that represents the same. It's really the same symbol, but it would represent Hokuma and Bina instead of Gajiel and Satariel, or technically Satan and Moloch. However, it is only the end of one journey and the beginning of another, the creation of Universe B, a path that transcends all man-made maps and systems of initiation. So it goes beyond that. In the Draconian tradition, it is the vision of the throne of Lucifer and revelation of the mystery of the twin god. This realm is believed to consist of two separate dimensions, one ruled by Satan, the other by Moloch, representing duality as opposed to the unity of Kether on the Tree of Life. Using this duality as a fuel, really, what it does is it keeps pressuring. I see it as like being pushed from each side, and it moves the current of consciousness up into a higher degree. The initiate opens here the path into the void beyond both the Tree of Life and the Tree of Death and becomes the Black Diamond, Ein, the ultimate manifestation of the deified consciousness. So there you have it. I'm going to go ahead and end this video there. If you're new to this channel and you have not subscribed already, go ahead and please subscribe. If you liked this video, if you resonate with this material, please feel free to share with like-minded individuals. Give this video a like. Thank you all for being a part of this channel. Almost at 800 subscribers. Very, very close. So, yeah, shooting for that 1,000 subscriber mark. And then once I get there, I'm going to go ahead and probably start a Patreon. So there will be information coming on that once we get closer to that mark. So thank you everyone for being a part of the channel. Thank you for watching my videos, for lending your time. Hopefully this is mutually beneficial though. So you learn something from watching these videos, and I can give you some kind of value, you know, informational wise. And you know, feel free to always comment in these videos. I like to connect and network with other people, like-minded people, so that we can further help each other evolve and grow. So with that being said, peace out for now, everyone, and I will see you next time.